The Washington National Opera is getting ready to dazzle crowds once again with its awe-inspiring arias and stunning scenery. Director David Alden is here from the Washington National Opera to talk about their latest masterpiece, Lucia di Lammermoor. So tell us, who is Lucia? And tell us a little bit about this opera and why it's so stunning.
Well, this opera is a fantastic melodrama. It's a bel canto opera, Italian bel canto opera from the early 19th century. It's based on a novel by Sir Walter Scott. It's about, it takes place in Scotland among warring clans. One of the clans is falling on hard times, and they need to marry off their daughter, Lucia, to a wealthy man. Basically, it's about a forced marriage, and it's about the brother of Lucia, who is almost unnaturally in love with his own sister, and yet has to sacrifice her for the good of the family fortunes. And unfortunately, she has fallen in love with a man from the rival clan, Edgardo, who's a kind of wild Highlander. And they have a passionate and dangerous relationship. But she's forced into this marriage nonetheless. And on the wedding night, from all the pressure and the tension which has been building up, she basically goes crazy and murders her bridegroom in the nuptial chambers that night. And
there's some extreme drama then.
It's an extreme melodrama. It's a tragedy, but it's also a very colorful, romantic, wild, passionate thing. It's a great opera.
Now you're here personally to tell us about this. This is your production.
Yes.
Tell us why it's different and unusual, and it's a big deal for us to have you here telling us about it. So tell us about it.
Well, I think my production is maybe different from other Lucias. As I said, it's a bel canto opera. It was made famous by singers like Joan Sutherland, who are great vocal singers and technicians, maybe not the greatest actors in the past, but nowadays opera has changed 1000%. There's been a revolution in opera production, and nowadays operas, I think, can be some of the most exciting theater available to people nowadays. And we have now singers who are like actors. They're like dancers almost. They're completely exciting in their roles, and they're visually absolutely perfect for their roles. And I think that the idea of a passionate dramatic story plus this amazing music by Donizetti, which is very romantic and has fantastic vocal opportunities for real vocal acrobats. These singers are like they're like athletes, not only physically but also vocally. They can do anything with their voices. The role of Lucia, for example, it's a famous role. It's a coloratura role in the mad scene.
Oh yes, tell us about that mad scene.
Well, I mean, she goes mad, but she goes mad through song, and she hears this sound in her head which is calling to her and reminding her of her love for Edgardo, and it's being played, I think, for the first time in Washington by the instrument that it was originally written for, which is the glass harmonica, which is a very strange instrument, which is basically like filling wine glasses with varying degrees of water, and you know how you do at a party. But we have a virtuoso player who can play chords and can play tunes and can play all sorts of things. And this was what Donizetti originally wanted in the score. And I think even before the opening night, it was deemed too complicated, so it was replaced by a flute. But now we are restoring the original sound, and it gives incredible color to the mad scene. It gives this eerie, unearthly kind of cry from another world, really, which I think is amazing. But I think overall, this production is going to show people how theatrical, sexy, and hot opera is nowadays.
Well, you talked about the iconic mad scene, and you talked about how you want to bring the tradition, a little bit of tradition back to it, but there also is a lot of updating and modern going on with this.
I mean, this is not a thoroughly updated production. We're setting it not in the 17th century when it was supposed to take place. We're setting it in the time that it was written, in the Donizetti period, early 19th century. And there's something about these prim Victorian people. People who come to see the show will see it's a fantastically rich but very authentic sort of early Victorian costumes, really corseted and very prim, wonderful, elegant but rather severe looking people in Scotland at that period. And there's something about that kind of uptight moral society which is forcing through this marriage to save their own skins financially, and how that completely backfires and turns on them, and how this girl who has become the pawn of these male games kind of goes crazy and explodes and really fights. She's insane, but she's also extremely focused and quite kind of clear thinking in this terrible murder that she does. She frees herself, and it's a kind of shocking, I mean, you could say it's a sort of feminist statement taken to the extremes, and it's watching this uptight Victorian sort of money-based society be ripped apart by this act of violence, which is, it's very exciting, it's very disturbing, and there's also something rather current about it, weirdly enough.
Well, I was just going to ask you, it sounds perfect for the regular opera lover, but why would anyone else want to come see it? But I think you may have just answered that question.
I think this would be a very good show for people who don't know anything about opera or who are worried about opera to come to, because it's theater. It's pure theater. It's fantastic singers, young singers, beautiful, sexy singers. The chorus here is not just some people who stand around. They're totally a group of people who are totally engaged in the event. Everyone knows that the orchestra here is great, and the conductor, Maestro Auguin, the new music director, is fantastic.
And as we said, incredible drama, not to be missed,
absolutely.
Right? Well, there's more Let's Talk Live, so don't miss that. Make sure you stay with us.